please join me in welcoming our mayor, Julian Castro.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Well, you know, I'm also going to be the first San Antonian to keynote the DNC, and I was thinking the other day what I might do is go get myself some Alamo dust and sprinkle it on the podium over there for good luck and to let them know that we're in the house at the DNC in Charlotte. Jim, I want to thank you and all of the sponsors today. I also, of course, want to thank Dwayne as well as the board of directors of the North Chamber and all of you for being here today. It's always given me great pleasure to come before you as mayor, beginning with a couple of years ago in 2009. This was the first significant speech that I gave after I got elected. Before I get started, though, I wanted to really thank my council colleagues and just ask them to stand up to be recognized one more time. I think Councilwoman Chan, Councilman Soles, Councilman Saldana are here today. I've enjoyed working with them tremendously. I think folks know that as far as the public sector goes here in San Antonio, one of the things that we've been able to achieve is to have a very collegial council that works well together, is balanced and focused on the future and being pragmatic and making good decisions that help make your lives easier, help you do what you do, which is to make San Antonio successful. I also wanted to recognize our city manager, Cheryl Scully, and ask her to stand. I have to say, and Mayor Hartberger said this many times, and I'll echo Mayor Hartberger's sentiments. Now that I've been mayor for 3 years, we have the best city manager in the United States of America in Cheryl Scully. And of course, you know, it's been quite my privilege and an honor to serve with Nelson Wolff as a great teacher, mentor. Nelson has seen it all, been through a million different battles, and I've enjoyed getting to understand both San Antonio and what we need to do for the future from him. So thank you, Nelson, for that. I appreciate it. Well, it is a very exciting time for San Antonio right now. The other day I saw a printout of growth for cities. And in population terms, would you believe that San Antonio in the last year grew in sheer numbers at the third fastest pace of any city in the United States, behind New York City and Houston. We also have today an unemployment rate at about 6.5%. We've been very blessed by the tremendous investment that's being made in the Eagle Ford play that has meant thousands and thousands of jobs for South Texas and thousands here in San Antonio. We've had great leadership at our utilities. I see Robert Puente and Berto Guerra here from SAWS, and Doyle Beneby and Derek Howard are doing a great job at CPS Energy. Just last week at CPS, they announced that they had completed their partnership with OCI Solar, which will bring more than 800 new jobs, good paying jobs to San Antonio in manufacturing and engineering and technical services, 2 new corporate headquarters, more than $100 million of investment in that manufacturing facility, and $40 million worth of annual payroll for our city. It is an exciting time to be here. 3 years ago, when I came to the North Chamber, I talked about the vision that I had for our community and the long-term challenges that I believe we need to make to ensure that in this 21st century global economy, our community is a very successful one. I've been encouraged during these last 3 years at the work that all of us in this community working together in the business community, in the public sector, in the nonprofit sector, what all of us have done to achieve success on those long-term challenges. We had an up-close and personal view of that just recently with more than $400 million of transportation investment that will be made as a result of TxDOT funding and MPO funding. I want to thank Judge Wolff, the county, Commissioner Wolff, Ray Lopez, Councilman Lopez on our end, and others on the MPO for that. That is going to be fundamental to helping ensure that our long-term transportation and infrastructure challenges are met. Last year when I was here, I made the announcement that I would ask the council and the voters to support $30 million of an investment for the northern interchanges at 281 and 1604. Due to your involvement, your activity, and your great word out there in the community, we passed the 2012 bond issue so that we got hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in our infrastructure in San Antonio. And finally, in the coming years, congestion is going to be a lot better in that corridor that I know is so important to business and to the quality of life on the north side of San Antonio and really throughout our region. In the area of water, over the last few years, SAWS has done a fantastic job of diversifying our water supply, but today's headlines are also a reminder of how much work we have to do. This year, we'll have the opportunity to make a bold investment of about 80,000 acre feet in new water for our portfolio at a reasonable cost per acre foot that will help San Antonio secure a good water source well into the future. And of course, there's more work to be done. On energy, at CPS Energy, that utility has become, I believe, the best municipal utility in the United States, well-run, affordable rates, looking toward the future, relying on all sources of energy that make sense for our community, being a leader in renewable energy, but also understanding that we have to keep costs down and move into the future at a measured pace. And so we have in San Antonio, on many of these long-term issues, I think, a fundamental approach that is right, that is productive, and that is leading us forward to success in this 21st century global economy. But there is one fundamental issue, one challenge that San Antonio has in this year 2012 and that we have faced for many decades, where I think that we need to turn our attention and turn to it in a very big way. Because I think all of us recognize it's something that if we don't get it right, that we're going to be paying for it for many, many more decades to come. And that issue, of course, is the issue of education. About a year ago, the Greater Chamber got together, the living mayors of San Antonio, former mayors, and asked each of them to speak to what challenge they identified for San Antonio that they saw we particularly needed to work on. Every one of those mayors, every single one of them, put education at the top of their list. And I agree with them. Today in San Antonio, we have a dropout rate that ranges from, if you believe one source, 15%, if you believe another source, 43%. At the same time, we live in a world in this 21st century global economy where 64% of the jobs out there require something more than a high school education. And we see communities through the years, communities like the Bay Area of California or San Diego or Boston or communities in other countries like Bangalore or Shanghai or now countries in Latin America, making the right investments with this underlying belief that I share, that in this 21st century economy, brain power is the new currency of success, and that those communities that create it will be those communities that thrive in this new reality, and those that fall short on that measure will fall behind economically. We've come too far in San Antonio. We've created too much economic prosperity not to make the right investment in education. It was in that spirit that last year I asked Charles Butt and General Joe Robles to work with education and business leaders in what I called a brain power task force to figure out how we could move the needle in educational achievement if we were to take the last 1/8 of a cent sales tax that produces about $30 million a year to San Antonio. And after looking at this for 14 months and understanding the research and visiting 3 communities outside of San Antonio as well as educational facilities in San Antonio, they came up with a straightforward but very powerful proposal for investment. We call that Pre-K for SA. To invest over the next 8 years in high-quality, full-day pre-K for more than 22,000 4-year-olds in our city. Today, we have about 5,750 4-year-olds in our city who either do not get any pre-K or only get half-day pre-K. That's important because the research is very compelling that even though there are a lot of places where we could choose to try and change the educational trajectory of our young people, the fact is that it makes a ton more sense and you get a much more return on your investment if you start early before a child gets behind than trying to catch them up later. And so the fact that we have so many young people who are not being sufficiently educated at that 4-year-old stage is important to the economic prosperity of San Antonio in the future. And so what we have in front of us at City Hall these days, what is important for us to accomplish that vision in the coming years, is that we make an investment in those young people. And this is specifically how we would do it, by creating 4 model centers of excellence around San Antonio that all told would teach about 2,000 4-year-olds, and only 4-year-olds, as the gold standard in Texas for pre-K education. They would also serve as teacher training labs for teachers from public schools, from charters, from nonprofits, and also for informal caregivers, homeschoolers, to be able to come and get training so that we increase the professional capacity, the quality of teaching, not just in the seats that are in those model centers, but in classrooms throughout the city of San Antonio, that we make a long-term impact over thousands and thousands of children all across our city. And these model centers would also offer the opportunity for us to hold this initiative accountable, to demonstrate over the next few years that making this investment makes sense. Our ultimate goal is to see the achievement gap drop by 10% for these students in 3rd grade math and reading scores. Of course, in the years to come, what we really want is we want these young people to not be retained in a grade or held back, to go on and graduate from high school and then go on to college or to whatever they want to do in life, but to do so in a way where they're prepared for the future and the new economic reality of the 21st century. The second way that we'll do it is by working with high-quality providers around the city, public districts, but also charters, and even nonprofit, private schools, if they're able to draw down state money like some have in the state of Texas, to fund up to 1,700 slots a year so that they can expand the seats in their classroom. Now, I have to say that as we look at what San Antonio needs in the coming years, there is nothing that this city needs more than more children who are well educated. And I bet you that if we went around the room today and I asked you about the workforce needs in your business, that you can tell quite a story of the difficulty that you've had or someone that you know has had finding high-skilled workers in our area, in our region. Of course, that's not uncommon to communities, but we don't want San Antonio to be in that position. We want to be the community that has a plethora of well-educated knowledge workers. We also know And anyone who has spent a couple of years in San Antonio must share a sense of pride in how far our community has come. It used to be that this city was almost an afterthought. And I'm talking many, many years ago, but it was thought of as a military outpost and a very lovely place to visit. And the fact is that today we're well beyond that. We're much more than that. And I've been so proud to see over decades the growth and development of San Antonio, owing to a lot of the hard work that you have done in your professional capacity to help create that prosperity. But as we look toward the future, we want the children that are in your homes, growing up here in San Antonio, we want the children that are your grandchildren to be able to be the ones to take on those jobs of the 21st century, to stay here in San Antonio instead of having to go to some other city to chase their dreams. We want San Antonio to be a community where the American dream is possible, no matter what that dream is for a child. And the only way to get there is to make an investment in education. Some of you might wonder, why this investment? Why this way? After all, the city of San Antonio does not do education, right? People think about the city of San Antonio and they think about streets and they think about drainage, they think about sidewalks, police officers, firefighters. The truth of the matter is that the city has been involved for quite a while in the realm of education, starting with the great leadership that Mayor Cisneros showed in helping to forge the education partnership, continuing through the great example that Nelson set in the 90s with the After School Challenge program, with the development of Cafe College just a couple of years ago that has been quite a success in San Antonio, helped to provide great information and resources to college-going kids all over the city. This is not something that is foreign to what we do. It's something that is an extension of what we've been doing. You may also wonder, why do we need to do this with a tax? People hear the word tax today, and we live in a world where that is only 3 letters, but it really is a 4-letter word. This is a sales tax of 1/8 of 1 cent that for the median household in San Antonio will cost $7.81 a year. This is an initiative that recognizes that we need to make that investment and also goes beyond that, engaging parents and families to be good shepherds of their young people, taking a page out of the successful charter schools in our community like KIPP and others that expect more from everybody involved in the education system, from students, from teachers, from administrators, and most especially from parents. In this initiative, we're going to have parental accountability so that if a child is involved in one of the centers, then they have certain things that they need to do. They need to meet with the teacher on a regular basis. They need to pledge to read to their child on a nightly basis. They need to pledge to help out with homework. They need to pledge to be a part of the graduation ceremony and social settings. And in the centers, we're building out a family room so that families feel connected to the academic journey of their child. I think all of us recognize that a good education starts at home and that a child must be blessed with a good shepherd, either a parent or someone else in the family, to ensure success. And I bet, again, if we went around the room that we would find a lot of those stories. I know in my own life, Joaquin and I were very fortunate that we had a mother who always whipped us into shape and made sure that we were going to go to college and got active in the PTA one day because she was the first person to show up through the door. That's what we want, not just that story, but your stories as well. That's what we want for children all over our city. We believe that we can accomplish that. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be a short-term proposition. But water is not easy. Power is not easy. Roads and infrastructure are not easy. At least those things are inanimate objects. Anytime you're dealing with the complexities of humans, it also makes it more challenging, but it makes it all the more important as well. I wanted to come here today and to say that the vision that we have laid out over these last few years for San Antonio, I see that vision every day coming true. I see it in the announcements about new transportation money. I see it in the apartment buildings that are going up along Broadway and the activity that you can see in the downtown area. I see it in the pride that people are taking in being here at this moment in San Antonio because of the great work of so many people in our community and the economic success that their work has generated. And I'm telling you that on this issue of education, that we cannot wait for anybody else to do it for us. We can't wait for Washington, D.C., or for Austin to make a difference on this matter. It is time for this community that has been talking about this issue, pining because we haven't made progress, enough progress, to do something bold, to make an investment that will matter to thousands of young people, with an accountability system that will allow us to measure the results, and checks and balances in it that will ensure that it gets on a successful path. You know, oftentimes in public office you get notes from folks, children around the city. Sometimes that's because you visited their class and the teacher will have them start drawing stick figures or something and put their name on it. Or I've gotten probably about 20 of these over the years, these cards on construction paper where it says, "Thank you, Mayor," in red or other colors. Kids that are appreciative. It's one of the nice breaks from sometimes the busyness of the day. And not too long ago, I got a note from a kid in San Antonio, and it started off with the word "sir," but it's spelled S-U-R, and that had some other misspellings. And the thing of it was, though, that kid's 14 years old and in 8th grade, and we have too many of those kids in our city. And for $7.81, we can make sure that in the future that we have a lot less of those. Thank you.